Hello, SPF301 students, and welcome to the overview for Lesson 4. This is Amy, your lead instructor, and I'm excited to talk with you about some of the things we're going to be learning about and doing in this week of the course. Okay, so I'm here on Lesson 4 of our Blackboard, and I want to start up at the top where it talks about what are we going to be learning about. So this whole lesson is focused on understanding some of the cultural biases in education, whether it's from the materials to the teaching styles to the setup of the classroom or to the tests, and also to understanding the achievement gap and what's causing the achievement gap. Hint, hint, probably has something to do with bias, either related to culture or socioeconomic status, and also ideas for how to overcome achievement gap. And so those are kind of our two main areas of focus this week: cultural bias in education and then the achievement gap. And so before we get into what you're going to read and watch and view in terms of the lectures, I want to scroll down to this week's assignments and talk about what do you need to know in order to be successful with the assignments. And then we're going to scroll back up and see how all the resources in the course for this week are going to help you do that, okay? Because one of the things that I'm noticing from some of the work that you guys are submitting in the class is it seems like you're submitting assignments without a true, really understanding of all the different resources that are embedded in the Blackboard shell. Right, so you guys are all doing a really good job on your book discussions, and there's clear connections to our course text in your book discussion group. But when it comes to the other assignments, like the observation of learning in a place, or possibly the blueprint assignment, or even your slides for your signature assignment, there's not as strong of a connection to some of the course materials. So this week I'm going to start off by talking about what are the deliverables, what assignments do you have to do, and then let's look at the resources embedded in this shell for this week and see what can help you be successful with those. All right, so you guys are down with the book discussions. You're doing a really great job of this. You know that, again, this week in Lesson 4, we're going to have a discussion group on 2 chapters from Black Ants and Buddhists, and we're reading chapters 7 and 8. And both of these chapters are really looking critically at how we teach history in schools and how we teach it in such a way that kids actually get excited about it, and why maybe some kids not excited about history. And then also, how do we make students natural historians? And so a lot of what you read in chapters 7 and 8 of the book this week are really going to get at the bias in history and the idea that, history has multiple perspectives, and you can broaden these ideas out when we look at just the teaching and the learning of history to the teaching and learning broadly in other areas in your future career, right? So how do we make sure that our learners see themselves in the information they're reading and learning about, and that we show critical and multiple perspectives in anything that we're learning about? And so those are kind of the topics from Black Ants and Buddhists that you're going to be reading about this week. And don't forget that in addition to posting to the discussion board, remember you also have to come back here to this link, right, for the discussion group assignment submission, and actually submit your 2 documents, your initial and your final Word doc, and then submit it here as well for the course. Otherwise, the instructional team has a really hard time getting to your work. Okay, so book discussion. You guys are on it. You're doing great. You know that routine. All right, so next I'm going to talk about slide 3, right? So this is another ongoing assignment in Lesson 4. This is going to be our 3rd time we're working on our signature assignment. And your slide 3 this week, if we look at the rubric for just this slide 3, this is going to be a slide in your vision statement presentation that addresses the concepts of achievement gap and cultural bias, right? And so remember, your assignment for the slides each week includes that you add a slide to your presentation, right? And remember, your slides should be minimal text, well thought out, 2 to 4 sentences, written in the style of a vision statement. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And then in addition to that slide, you also have your notes, right, typed up for the slide. And this is really the meat of the assignment. This is the detailed explanation of the minimal ideas on your slide, where you get into the thinking behind and the reason behind the statement that you wrote on your slide. And remember, in order to score exceeds or exemplary on these assignments, your notes really need to be very detailed. They need to include all of your thinking. Don't leave your instructional team member guessing as what do you mean by that, or can you give me an example? We need to be very clear on your thoughts. And one of the ways you can clearly support what you're doing is by citing references to the course materials, right? And in order to score and exceeds on this area, you need to cite at least 3 different references from the course materials for this lesson, lesson 4, and at least 1 outside resource. An outside resource means that that's a resource that you've gone on your own, searched, found, and have learned from, and now included that in your thinking and in your notes. And then finally, your notes and your PowerPoint slide should be free of grammatical and mechanical mistakes. And also in your notes section, remember, you need to be citing your resources using APA formatting, right? So you should have in-text citations, and then you should have a reference list at the bottom of your notes where you cite all the resources that you used. Okay, so this week, your slide for lesson 4 is going to be focusing on what is your vision for addressing the concepts of achievement gap and cultural bias. Okay, so that is your signature assignment slide. Okay, so we've talked about your discussion group and your signature assignment, 2 of the 3 deliverables. The last deliverable this week is recording a video. You guys, we get to see you, right? So this is super exciting. You're going to record a video about your understanding of the achievement gap and how to correct it. Okay, so if we look at the directions and the rubrics for this assignment, you're going to want to read through this first, right? And this is kind of like reading the answers or the questions to a reading comprehension quiz before you read the text itself, right? If you know what you're looking for, right, then when you're doing the readings and the viewings for the lesson, you're going to be better prepared. So that's why I'm starting with the assignments this week instead of the readings. I want you to know where we're going so that once you get into the readings and the viewings, you're well prepared and paying attention to the key things you're going to need to pull out to be successful on your assignments. Okay, so this week you're making a video, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to do all the readings for the course, and then for this week, and then you're going to complete this brainstorm, right? Where you're going to have to define what is the achievement gap, right? What did you already know about achievement gap? And then what surprised you from this readings in relation to the achievement gap? What are the main causes for the achievement gap? Think about 2 to 3 main causes. Talk about, in your video, you're going to need to cite the references, right? And so when you're talking in a video, you can't really say parentheses, Dewey, page 47, right? But you can say things like, in the video that we watched entitled Stay Focused, one of the things that the author mentioned was, or you could say, in our textbook on chapter 7, they talk a lot about, or you could say, in the article, blah, 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 right? So you can still make references to our course materials orally in your video, and you need to. Okay, so what are the main causes? What are the effects? And then down here, this is all about, right, your proposed solution. So how would you propose closing the achievement gap? What resources would be necessary? You can think about resources in terms of people, funds, materials, right? So you can think about those kind of resources. You can also think about what obstacles, right? You're going to have to address what obstacles do you think you'd face when you're trying to close the achievement gap? And then if you could, right, what outcomes are you hoping to achieve, right? If we close the achievement gap, what would happen and what would be those positive outcomes that would come from it? And then finally, talking about why is this important to you and to your community. On this brainstorming document, you're also going to include all your work cited, right? So your references to the work you're going to cite in your video, and then you're going to include your video link, okay? So you need to, and it says to copy and paste this into a separate Word doc because you're going to upload this brainstorm as your assignment submission. Okay, so if we go back here to the achievement gap, so if we click on the assignment submission, you're going to need to upload a document, right? That includes, you're going to upload your brainstorming document, and that document is also going to include the video link for us to access your video. Okay. So here's your instructions, right? So you need to make sure you do all the readings, do the brainstorming, and then record a 2 to 4 minute video. So practice this, you guys, over and over again, right? Because it's hard to get the timing down. So practice your video a few times and then record it. You can use any software you want to record your video, but then you're going to upload your video to YouTube. So all students have a YouTube account. You can find your YouTube account by going to your My ASU homepage, going down to Google Drive, accessing Google Drive, and then up here where you have your Google Apps icon, you're going to click on that, and then from there you can choose YouTube. Now, once you're in YouTube, right, you can upload a video. Right here is the up arrow, and that's going to count for upload. When you click on that, it's going to give you a drop-down menu of how do you want your video to be uploaded, public, unlisted, private, or scheduled. I would suggest using unlisted. This means that anybody with the link will be able to view it, but if you don't have the link, you can't, right? And then you can drag the video that you want to, the file that you want here. So like I might go to just as a, I'm going to drag and drop a video, and then you'll see that it's uploading. Once it's done, this blue area here where it says done is going to say publish. And if you click on publish, then it's going to give you the hyperlink, right? The address of where we can find your video, and you can copy and paste that. So I'm going to leave this view for now, but at the end we'll check back and see if that's done, and I can show you how to finish it. So, but there's also written directions here, right? So once the processing is done, you can copy and paste the address for how to find your video, and then you're going to put the address right here where it says reflection video link. Okay, so that's the idea behind the video. You're going to be investigating what is the achievement gap, why does it exist, what causes it, right? And then create a proposal for how to overcome it. And in your video, you should address all of these things, all of those questions in 2 to 4 minutes. And you need to make sure that as you're addressing it, you're making reference back to course materials explicitly, right? So talking about which articles, which videos gave you the information you're now using, and either to better understand the achievement gap, what caused it, or what would you like to do to overcome it. Okay, so those are our 3 assignments, our 3 deliverables for lesson 4. Our book discussion, our slide 3 on achievement gaps and cultural bias, and also the video on achievement gap and how to overcome it, okay? So if we know that that's where we're going, let's go up and look at all the resources you have access to in this lesson. First of all, you've got your readings, okay? So you've got the chapters. You also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 additional assigned readings for this week, you guys. So there's all kinds of information like social class in the hidden curriculum. So that's going to look at social bias, cultural bias, socioeconomic bias in schooling. We're also going to look at the role of culture in minority school achievement, right? So what role does culture play in minority students, and how is that culture affecting their achievement? And then you've got a few here about the achievement gap, right? These last 4 are about 5 about the achievement gap. You also have some additional reading you can read if you'd like. You've got 2 lectures to view this week. The first is on test bias, right? So thinking about how specifically in education tests are biased towards certain students, whether that's because of socioeconomic status, culture, race, background experience, all kinds of bias. And so you're going to look at, how do we look for bias in tests? And they're going to give you some sample questions to look at and see, why is this question biased? How could we make it better? And then you're also going to watch a lecture on the achievement gap where they're going to give you some statistics. So this is going to be a really good place to draw, again, some of those ideas for what is the achievement gap, what's causing it. Okay, you've got 2 videos to watch this week. The first is called Helping Children Succeed, and then subtitled How Do You Learn Grit, right? And so this is going to look at the achievement gap. And when you watch this video, I say watch the video. It's actually like a still frame with an audio over it. So it's more like listening to a podcast, right? But you're going to listen to this author who wrote this book on, helping children learn grit, talk about what does it mean to be a gritty learner, and how, if we focus on increasing grit in students, how might that impact what they learn and how well they learn. And so this is kind of getting at one way to close the achievement gap, one perspective for how to close the achievement gap. So that might be an idea you really cling to and like and choose to use for your video and or for your slide this week, for your signature assignment, right? And then the other video is, okay, so that one about grid is about 11 minutes long. And then the Brown versus Board of Education, that second video is about a 3-minute video. It's a shorter one, looking at what were the goals of Brown versus Board and have we met them, right? So one of the goals of Brown versus Board was to desegregate schools and make sure that all students were receiving the same education. And so is that actually happening? So it's going to be a quick video on whether or not we're meeting the goals. And you can look at, again, cultural bias and achievement gap in this video and see ideas that you want to cling to or consider for both your slide presentation and your video presentation. Okay, so that's your overview, you guys. I can't say enough about the importance of really understanding what we're learning about, right? So reading the learning objective and understanding that. And then from here on out, I'm always going to start with these assignments first and the deliverables so that you understand that the readings and the lectures and the videos we presented in the lesson are there to support you in completing your work, right? So not only do you need to do the assignment, but you need to do all of the readings and the viewings and watching the lectures to make sure that you are informed in your understanding of these concepts and can display your understanding of them in your assignments each week. Okay, we as an instructional team are here to answer your questions. Remember, go over to the conversation board if you have any questions at all this week, or email your instructional team member and we'll get back to you. We're here to support you and we're excited to see your work. Onward, you guys, we got this.